Welcome to Seattle Hall Pass, a podcast with news and conversations about Seattle Public Schools. My name is Christy Robertson.
And I'm Jane Tunks-Damel. For decades, Seattle has shuffled teachers among schools every October after the October 1st headcount is conducted at each school.
This year, the impact was much greater because along with the usual teacher shuffle between schools, teachers had to be shuffled between grades in order to meet K-3 class sizes required by the state.
And because the budget situation at Seattle Public Schools is so dire, there was no wiggle room for them to hire any additional teachers.
To review what happened this most recent October, you can listen to our 6th episode called The John Stanford Shuffle on seattlehallpass.org. Around this time, we recorded interviews with 6 parents and 2 teachers at 7 Seattle schools. In this episode, we're going to bring you teacher Will Debusoy and parents Nasira Suleiman Craig and Alex Wakeman-Rouse from one Seattle school, Dunlap Elementary. We recorded these interviews separately in October and November, but we wove them together here in our edit.
Dunlap this year lost 2 teachers because the school had 24 fewer students than the district projected. As a result, several classrooms needed to be shuffled and students had to be put in new classrooms.
And now, welcome to Dunlap teacher Will Debusoy. Can you introduce yourself to us, Will?
My name is Will Debusoy. I teach 4th grade at Dunlap Elementary. I've taught here since 1998, pretty much straight. Yeah, I started teaching in 92.
Are you the teacher that's been there the longest?
No.
Wow.
There's probably a couple other teachers. One thing Dunlap is known for is the longevity of staff that have wanted to stay here and didn't ask for a transfer. And then another is that staff that get onboarded by us want to stay here. And that includes the 2 that were displaced.
We should say that displacement is the word that SPS uses when they move a teacher to a different school due to shifts in enrollment. And so, Will, why do you think that teachers are so dedicated to Dunlap?
The feeling for a lot of administrators is say the Dunlap staff has got longevity from Miss Metz, who has been here for maybe 10 more years, 15 more years than I have, and the new teachers that have come on the last 5 years or so from STR and what have you.
Is STR Seattle Teacher Residency?
Yes. Yeah, we pretty much have a very tight staff community. And a lot of it is because of just a lot of mutual support for each other. Newbie or vet. Sometimes the vets need help with the technology and everything like that, and the newbies help, or sometimes the newbies just need to survive the first or second year of teaching. Mm-hmm. So that we don't stay isolated from each other in the classrooms. We really do a lot of collaboration and mutual support. I think what drives it is that Dunlap's in this space between a lot of other schools in Southeast Seattle, but we've always had a guiding North Star of just driving towards doing the best for our kids here and treating each child as if it was our own child. Like, how would we want to be talked to if we were the parent of that child? So our relationships that we model, the teachers that have been here long term have created a core value system about how we work with our neighborhood, community, and population of students, which has always been traditionally where we're at, immigrant, almost always predominantly BIPOC for over the years. There's a lot of support for affordable housing here. So one of the big issues is that because of where we are with just a high immigrant refugee population, we just have a mobile population where it doesn't stick on the October 1st count. So the district will project for a certain thing, and then we'll have families that migrate out and say, hey, I can not afford to be here anymore. I got to move to Kent. And then we will have new families coming in, and they might be placed by refugee assistance programs and things like that. They might be at the George Floyd apartments, or they might get placed locally in other housing, and they're here in the middle of the year. And then our count all of a sudden jumps up like 8 or 9 kids. We're thinking that it would be a great idea if there was some sort of waiver for highly mobile populations To not get stuck in a situation where we lose teachers after we've worked on establishing community, and for some of these kids, it's their first experience in an American school.
Let's add a couple parent voices into the mix.
My name is Alex Wakeman Rouse. I have 2 kids. My oldest is in first grade at Dunlap, and my younger kid just turned 4, so he'll be in kindergarten in a couple of years. I grew up here in Seattle, so I went to elementary, middle, and high school in Seattle Public Schools. And my mom actually worked for the district for about 15 years as a school nurse, and most recently as a contact tracer during the pandemic.
And I'm Nasra Suleiman Craig. I have a son, and he's in kindergarten, so it's our first year in the Seattle Public School sector. And I grew up in Seattle. I actually went to Adams Elementary School when we just came to America, so that was my first school. Went to middle school in West Seattle, high school in the North End at Ingram, graduated college here. So I stayed here all my whole life, pretty much.
So tell us what happened this year at Dunlap.
So yeah, it's very new for us. I'm still learning, and we get good communications from the school and of course SPS, but I'm still confused at what's going on sometimes. Just reading from the email, we know that we lost 2 teachers there. My son's class got shifted. His guest teacher told me that he was going to be shifted to the other class or transferred to the other class, and got a little nervous about it because he's really loving the teacher. He loves his class and his classmates. And I was nervous that he's going to be discouraged going to another class, and then they're going to have another shift in teacher returning from their maternity leave. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. But thankfully, towards the end of the day, he didn't get moved. Right now, he have a mixed class of first and kindergartner in his classroom. His class is the one who first grader got moved into, and he was going to be shifted to the full only kindergarten class. There was an email sent to us, I think, a week prior to that shift happening. He knows what's going on. He's excited with the new classmates joining and stuff. I think everybody's adjusting. He's making new friends. He makes friends very easily. So he's adjusting.
Thanks, Nasra. And let's hear what this October was like from a teacher's perspective.
This year, they had funded for us to have just about 2 of each grade, 2 kindergartens, 2 first, 2 second, nice size school, 2 fourths and 2 fifths. We had, as a result, 1 new teacher come aboard. He was assigned as a partner to me, a 4th grade teacher who just came out of STR. I worked with him closely through August to just say, hey, this is the Dunlap way, this is how we do things. And he was really on board. Mr. Hammond was doing a great job just listening and learning about the community from me and spending a lot of critical time getting to know his neighborhood. He'd just take walks at lunchtime and walk around the neighborhood as his first year teaching. He'd eat his lunch walking around. He had approximately 22 students and I had 22 students, and we had already set our classrooms up. So the story is that, as you probably know, the district recognized that it was in jeopardy of losing 3.1 million or so because they didn't do something correctly to go with the McCleary money. And the district said, wait a minute, we're paying for too many intermediate teachers. We're paying for 4 intermediate teachers. We're only supposed to pay for 3.5. So the first thing is that either me or Mr. Hammond has to split ourselves and become a part 3rd grade teacher. The issue was that our 3rd grade was already small. We were at like 17 or 16 students in the 3rd grade. But because of the state mandate that the money be driven towards K through 3, we had to reconfigure in a way to try to create one of us 4th grade teachers to be a 3-4 split. Where our lump was in population was in the 4th grade. So that would migrate other 4th grade students up into the other 4th grade class or the 5th grade class to increase their numbers. And then we would have one of us teachers teaching a 3-4 split. So that's the one piece, okay?
Yeah.
The other piece is, for some reason, we're still trying to figure out what the arcane formula is. they decided that our population of drop of 24 students from their projection should cost us 2 teachers. So they have to pay for 6.5 K through 3s and 3.5 intermediates. And plus, we're going to lose 2 teachers. So instead of 12 teachers to do this, we're going to change it to 10 teachers that are going to try to do it.
You were trying to figure out this formula too, right, Alex?
Dunlap's enrollment last spring was like 230 kids. We are a high mobility school, so kids move in and out of our neighborhood a lot. We have a couple of tiny home villages. We've got a lot of low-income housing, like Seattle Housing Authority and other nonprofit low-income buildings. So there's just a lot of mobility. But our projections for this year were 249 kids, so almost 20 more. And I don't know why. It just seems like that would be a really big swing for our school. And so we didn't meet that enrollment number. Not only did we not gain 20, we actually were 5 fewer. In October, they said we had 225 kids. And so we had to lose 2 teachers. I also don't know how that equates to 2 teachers.
How did you manage as a teacher group losing those 2 teachers, Will?
So I'm on the BLT team. When we lose one teacher, Mr. Hammond, and then we lose Mr. O, who was also teaching 3rd grade, we had to do some juggling just to comply and get all these numbers to match up, and we just ended up creating all kinds of splits. There's no straight 3rd grade anymore. There's only a 2-3 and a 3-4. I'm teaching the straight 4, and I got brought up to 28. Mr. Barr, who was a 5th grade teacher, is now a 4-5 teacher with 15 4th graders and 10 5th graders. And because of that decision, none of our K through 3s, as I look at it, none of those numbers are at the ratio of 1 to 17 anymore. I'm looking at a kindergarten with 21 kids, a K1 with 14 Ks and plus 5 first graders, a first grade with 22 first graders, a 1/2 with 14 first graders, 6 second graders. The one straight we got is a second grade. It's got 22 kids, a 2-3. That's a really difficult one. Mr. Burness' assignment is that he's got 7 second graders, and then he's got 13 third graders that are going to take the SBA. Those second graders don't take that. And if you looked at any of our current math curricula with Amplify or the Envision adoptions, that teacher, we've got to manipulate 2 different learning paths. For instance, Mr. Barr is teaching decimals, but at the same time, he's teaching place value to the few 4th graders in his class. 2 different workbooks to manage, curricula.
And last year, we also had a shuffle in October. We got an email saying that our kindergarten classes were too big. We're going to have to move some kindergartners around to 1st grade. And this was just an email from the principals. We never got any communication from the district. I had no idea that this was like a typical thing that happens. And I remember being really confused and worried too, because my kid is a little shyer, and thankfully they had Jumpstart last year, but he was the kid that cried and screamed every day of Jumpstart. A small classroom with some stability, with a teacher that he can connect to was just really important to me. And so I was really worried about it. He did not move, but so I knew it happened, but I didn't know it was normal.
How did the kids respond to all that movement?
They have written "We miss you" letters to Mr. Hammond. Mr. O. Mr. O has been with us for about 2 years going now, and he really wanted to stay. He was really committed. He really merged well with the rest of us as a staff community. The kids, some of these 1st graders and 2nd graders, are wondering if they're going to be able to play or see their classmates that they had in September. What lunch were their former classmates going to be in now? Are they going to be in 2nd or 1st grade lunch? As I review a lot of their "We miss you" letters, a lot of those 3rd and 4th grade kids, they were talking a lot about how they really connected with that particular teacher for the month that we were here together. The population, like I said, there's a lot of kids that are ML. And
Multilingual?
yes, where they're having to sort through the scheduling hassle that usually happens in September. Like, when are these kids going to get service? It happens again. And it happens in a more complicated way because now we have second grade, first year learning English kids with kindergarten learning English, just learning anything kids. That's been a hot mess trying to figure out all the scheduling with service for all those students.
There's going to be a lot of shifting. The maternity teachers are coming back in December, and so they're going to have another change happening, and they're going to have another teacher to get used to and familiarize to. It's a little concerning, but kids are resilient, and I'm hoping that everybody work together as a team to make it best for all the kids involved with it.
One of the amazing things about Dunlap, because it's a smaller school, there's a lot of amazing things. Most of our staff and teachers are people of color, which is really important for our community because the vast majority of our kids are people of color. So they're seeing educators who share their culture and their background. But because it's so small, every staff person knows all of the kids. It's amazing. And so with this transition, they were really intentional. I don't know what the formula was, but I know that each teacher connected with all family members of those that they thought about moving to discuss and try and figure out whether this would be a good opportunity or not. And then the second thing that's been so amazing is the messaging to the kids. When I asked my first grader about it, because he didn't move, I was just asking, how did it go? What's he thinking? And he said, oh, so-and-so are going to be the leaders in the kindergarten class. They're moving down to kindergarten, but they're still in first grade, Mom. They're still first graders, but they're going to be the leaders of the class. And then my other friend was saying that her son was really disappointed he didn't get to move because he said, does my teacher not think I'm a leader? I should be a leader. I could be a leader for the first graders.
Oh, that's so cute.
But the teachers in school is really going above and beyond to center students and families. I just think it shouldn't have to be this way. And we have so much transition and mobility in our community. And like Nasser said, our kindergarten teachers are on parental leave, both of them. There was already so much change built into these kids' lives. And I'll add to, I know that other schools who had lower enrollment and were supposed to lose staff were able to raise private money to pay and keep their staff, which I don't fault them for that. And if we have the money, I think we would do the same, but we don't. And so I think that was an unfortunate, really unfortunate, unintended consequence of this shifting. Of the other big pictures, I've been talking to parents all across the city, and there are schools that had 30 or 40 more kids than they expected. So all of the classes are like 30 kids, and I don't want that either, you know?
Right.
All kids deserve stability and like good support and staffed schools. So it's all crappy.
For other students and families, what have you heard from them about this change? What are their feelings?
Parents that I talk to who drop off or pick up their kids, a lot of them does not speak English well, so they're not really aware of going on. I know the school did a really good job at calling some of the parents that speaks the language and kind of explaining to them, but I don't think they get the whole gist of the story of what's happening. I think if you get email information that's more in-depth detail to that, we're still navigating this whole system of what do we know, what do we not know, what do we share with each other, how do we get these information from the school or from SPS.
That's been my main concern is, are we helping answer any of those questions that parents might have? To Nasser's point, I think a lot in our community, often due to language barriers, but often because they aren't familiar with this educational system at all, is they don't know what to do with the questions that they have, so they just keep them. And so they're left confused, and it can sometimes foster like mistrust. And this year, because of the shuffle and the loss of 2 teachers, I've talked to quite a few parents and caregivers who feel that this means the school is going to close, that they feel like the district is doing this on purpose, and that this is just the beginning of closing our school. So there's a lot of fear and concern. That is what this means. And I think because nobody has come and talked to us and talked to our community from the district and shared why this happened or helped explain, then there's just a lot of worries swirling around and no answers.
How do parents feel about the idea that Dunlap might close?
Dunlap and the staff and the teachers are so intentional and supportive and provide such wraparound support for the kids who need it the most. And I think there's just worry that if that kind of intentionality and hyper focus on supporting our kids, those kids will be lost. I personally think it can be done in a way that centers those kids and centers those families, but I don't have any evidence of that actually happening. Like I said, they haven't even come to talk to us about why we lost 2 teachers. They haven't shown us that they would actually center our voices and actually listen to us and our concerns.
Do you have any thoughts you want to share about the district leadership or the school board directors?
Like I said, this is my first year in the SPS system. As a immigrant, I'm not really familiar of how to navigate the system. It's a learning process for me, and remembering when we came to America, being a 5th grader, you just have to navigate everything by yourself. I want to learn so I can be a better advocate for my kid and kids in the school. So I'm open to learning. Sorry. Just got a little emotional just because just remembering what we went through as immigrants and trying to learn the system and acclimating to America and parents not speaking any English. So I know that lack of communication sometimes breed contempt and sometimes breed misunderstanding and mistrust. And I hope that the school system shares a lot more and be a little bit more open to at least reaching out to the broader community of immigrants, because our community is full of immigrants. And even though I grew up here, there's so much that I'm still learning and I don't know about. And I can't imagine parents who just came here a year or 2 ago trying to acclimate to America and getting themselves settled and having multiple kids and like juggling all these things. Like I can't imagine what they're going through just because I'm putting myself in my parents' perspective. And it's just heartbreaking to not understand anything.
So hard. And it just makes it triply overwhelming for those parents. And there's a significant percentage of our Seattle Public Schools population where the home language is not English. It's a real strength for our whole district, but it requires special handling, especially when there's like unusual things like this that are happening. So my heart goes out to you and your community and those other communities, Nasra.
Dunlap is an incredible melting pot of people from everywhere across the world. Last year, we had 30 refugee students from Afghanistan move to our community. We have Ethiopian, Eritrean, Somali. We have Mian, Cham, Vietnamese, Chinese. We have Spanish-speaking families from Mexico and Guatemala. I'm forgetting so many other people, but we are a world school. So my ask for the board or the superintendent is more support for schools like ours. I know that we only have instructional assistants in Somali, Vietnamese, and Spanish. But we had those 30 students from Afghanistan last year. And we didn't have a PTA. We didn't have any money to fund a Dari or Pashto interpreter to help those families understand. So I agree with Nasra. More communication, come to where we're at, because our families are eager. When we have events, they come, even if we only have interpreters for those 3 languages. And we work hard as a small community to try and find interpreters and pay for them to show up. But we're at the ground zero of understanding I grew up here. I'm a native English speaker. I have a master's degree in public administration, and I am completely flummoxed by how all of this works. Just some help in educating us a bit so we can feel empowered and bought in and seen and heard.
Will, we've talked to lots of parents and only a few teachers, and so we're really wanting to hear from teachers from your perspective. How does it affect you when these shuffles happen? Like everything, the change in classroom, the split grades.
Besides what I've already said about from watching the kids experience a little bit of trauma from the upheaval of moving desks and having to explain to parents. For me as a teacher, it felt like starting September again when I lost 6 students. They had to go to the 3-4 split, and then I gained 7 or 8. So it's a weird change. So some kids left my class that we thought would be more appropriate for 3-4, and some kids entered my class that were from Mr. Hammond's closed down class. And we have to start the whole building classroom community process again, albeit maybe I had to condense it a little bit. Can you sign on to our class charter? Can we understand all of the routines and processes in class and homework and things like that? But the 23 kids I started with were really good in trying to help those students that entered my class. I think it's hard for me just because I had put a lot of time into helping Mr. Hammond. I sat a couple hours after school every day saying, how do you run a 4th grade class? What things do you do? How do you handle homework policies and seating and class procedures and things like that? So I spent a lot of investment time, as we normally do with new teachers at Dunlap, and saying, this is what our community is like. I'll tell you, we get a lot of kids from these apartments and a lot of kids from the local neighborhood. We shared a lot of things and bonded a lot. And so that was hard to have put that work in and have it lost. Plus, I've been teaching at about 23, 24 for a while. And right now I'm at 27, which is like one under my contract. And my classroom is just filled to the gills. There's really not any space to do community circles on the floor anymore. There's a few more papers and grades that I have to scrutinize, and reading levels and small reading groups I have to formulate. So that's been difficult. Any teacher will tell you, hey, you add 5 or 6 more kids, you're probably going to have an extra half hour every day to prep or to assessments. And that all adds up. So
that totally makes sense. Did you guys have any say in the matter, or was there any appeal, or was it just kind of told to you?
Oh, we've just been trying to appeal it left and right. It was told to our principal, and our principal went and said, anybody in the district, can you explain to us why 24 kids equals 2 teachers? John Adams lost 2 in the North End, and we lost 2, and we know Orca lost a teacher. And there are some other buildings that had enrollment drops, but did not lose teachers. We could have used 1 teacher, definitely. We wouldn't have so bad a shakeup in K through 3, where we're running 22 kids and they're different grade levels. Any of that decision making did not seem, from my professional viewpoint, a best decision for kids. Right now, we are just trying to comply with what the district asked us to do, even if it is not the best thing to do. And all that, moving students that are furthest from educational justice up academically, it's just much more of a heavy lift. So I'm not sure how we are going to make our CSIP goals.
For our listeners, a CSIP is a continuous school improvement plan. Every school needs to have one, and it is now supposed to align with the goals and guardrails that the school board laid out. The CSIP is put together and approved by the building leadership team, I believe.
We submitted our goals early on before any of this, and we said, yeah, our goal is always third grade reading. And that looks like it's just going to be a very difficult task if we got K1s running at 22, 23 with a high ML population. Our second and third grades are still feeling after effects of COVID learning. Those are still reverberating through the grades. So we are still catching up from there. I don't see where in this decision it was best for our particular kids. And we're also concerned that we know that there is a well-resourced school discussion happening through the district, which is going to probably lead to school consolidations and closures. And it makes us wonder if they've already selected the schools. So we have as concerns are certain schools set up to not experience success and therefore justify the closure. I just appreciate that you folks are letting us get our story out. I know there were a lot of folks at Orca at all the board meetings, and we have a population that cares too. They just have a lot of parents that are very busy or maybe a little bit too apprehensive of getting up in front of a microphone and explaining the impact on their daughter or child on what happens here. But they have the same concerns and griefs over things changing like they do. So we just would like to make sure that Dunlap's story is somewhere in this mix. Dunlap has always been at that forefront of trying to reduce disproportionality. Even before there were racial equity teams and everything, Dunlap was already doing it because that's all we had. We had students of color. That was what we worked with. So every move we were always thinking that if this was my son, how am I going to make this child move up the levels or improve socially, academically, behaviorally? So we were always doing that work before there was racial equity teams. And so we started one, and we still continue to do that work. We've always been here in the Southeast Seattle as one of these kind of like schools that is a little bit overlooked. It's just if my kid didn't get off the waiting list at Orca, or not Orca, but South Shore or whatever, then we're just going to place them into Dunlap until they have an opening. And then the kid stays there at Dunlap. We like it fine here. We're going to stay here. Or because we've been here so long that the families, I got a kid here I've taught her mom and dad. So that's where Dunlap is. It's just a really embedded community school. It's not like one of these schools that has endowments and well-resourced and things like that. We just garner our own resources from the people around us and our commitment to the neighborhood. So you'll see a lot of things happening here that we say, that sounds like it would be a private school. This classroom here that I run, it's a field experience every month. We're not one of these schools that says, we've got this population, so we're just going to work on the basics. No, our kids are doing everything. They're doing lots of field science, lots of experiential learning. We don't feel that sometimes we get enough positive press about what goes on here. But so that's the story of Dunlap.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys telling the story, and I'm happy that we can help to spread the news and put faces to possible decisions.
We have not seen a director for a long time. We have not seen downtown people for a long. We see some of our specialists come in and stuff like that. But yeah, we don't have these decision makers coming and seeing what happens on the ground and why this is a community school.
Yep.
I just want to thank you guys so much for talking to us. Your community just sounds like an amazing community, and I hope that we can help people learn about it and see all the strength and value that's there.
I just have to say that I appreciate being part of this podcast because you guys have taught me some stuff that I wasn't aware of. Like I said, even though I grew up in Seattle, just navigating the system and stuff like that, you guys had opened my eyes to like, oh, look, you can email the school board and all these things. And I just need to make sure that I'm braver in my action and making sure that my voice is heard more and not just be seen and not be heard mentality growing up. So I appreciate that. And thank you for letting me be part of this podcast. I appreciate you guys.
Oh my gosh, that means so much to us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for sharing everything about both of your stories and your school story with us.
And thank you, Will. It was great to meet you.
Thank you so much, Will.
It's been great talking with you.
We checked in with Alex, Nasira, and Will to get an update from them. Things are basically the same as we left them.
Though they did get a visit from school board director Brandon Hersey, who came to their PTA meetings.
He apologized on behalf of SPS and said that while our students are resilient, they didn't deserve such a big disruption. They haven't gotten any information from Director Hersey or the district about why enrollment predictions were so off or what steps they're taking to prevent a big disruption like this from happening in the future.
In our next episode, we hope to feature stories from 5 additional schools who also had disruptions in October this year.
We think understanding what happens on the ground based on district decisions is really key for making future decisions. Hopefully after these couple of episodes where we're just bringing you ground stories, we will have an episode where we explore why this shuffle happens in some more detail and why it is that despite years of parent protest and people even joining the board to try to mitigate this shuffle that happens every October, why are we so stuck in this situation every year? If you know anybody that you think we should talk to, or if you are a district historian in some way, or if you know how this works in other districts around the state or in other states, please contact us at hello@seattlehallpass.org. We would love to talk to you. And that concludes this episode of Seattle Hall Pass.
Show notes are available at seattlehallpass.org, where you can subscribe or donate to support our podcast.
I'm Christy Robertson.
And I'm Jane Tungstamel. We'll be back with more episodes soon, and we hope you'll join us next time on Seattle Hall Pass.